So, a long time ago, I added on my TESOL certificate to my teaching degree I already had in teaching Spanish. And as such, I was able to work part time teaching Spanish and part time teaching ESL in a Catholic school. So while I was there, I asked the previous TESOL teacher, who was just an ELA certified teacher, how did you organize your classroom? And what he said to me was that he um, had 3 days a week where he would do ESL instruction, and he had 3 days a week where he would do study hall, and he would expect the students to be doing their work, and he would be helping them with it. So that started me on my path of being a TESOL teacher, where you're taking students across 5 different levels and trying to teach them all the necessary skills to be successful in their academic careers, which is a lot. So it really made me wonder as I went in, changed jobs and started teaching for BOCES and moved to a more rural district where I didn't have quite so many students in a room. How would this work with them? So one day I had a new student I needed to assess, and I wondered, is he a SIFE student? Is he a student with interrupted formal education? So I started the process, and he actually was not at least 2 years behind in his home language, according to the computer program. But he did have some interesting traits. So that brought me to the Bridges curriculum. And Bridges is a program for SIFE students. That helps them achieve across a bunch of different levels. It's actually got a lot of components to it if you get onto the Bridges website and know the password. And so I ended up making quite a few binders, having quite a lot of information, and it was almost a little bit overwhelming to use. And but really, it's a very solid program. So the standalone one is the program that was most helpful for me. And so, what I ended up doing in my standalone classroom, I set it up just the way they described, using their essential question: How do you get more power in the world? Because isn't that what all of our students are looking for? Is more control over their lives, learn English so that way they can do whatever it is they want to do with their life. So I set up the stations with the power words, independent writing, and reading, and I used that format using folders, having the materials inside. I used prong folders, so I had like different writing organizers they could use, and it really worked very well. But again, it's a lot. So I transformed this into just a quick routine. That I can use with my learners. So we start with an opening welcome session, go into word work, then reading, then writing, and we have our closing, our questions at the end. So with the beginning, whenever they arrive in my classroom, I always want them to know they are welcome. I am happy to have them there. If it's virtual instruction and they're 10 minutes late, hey, thanks for making it. I am so happy you're here. It doesn't matter if your brother or sister screaming in the background. That's fine. But I always check in and make sure they had breakfast and all their Maslow needs are met. From there we go into word work. Here we have a student who's just putting words together, or the Bridges system uses the ERLA power words. One of my favorite things to use is words their way. So with the Words Their Way program, there's a variety of levels, and they even have some books now for Spanish speakers, which I haven't had experience with. I've just used the basic ones. There's emergent sorts, and then there's letter alphabetic sorts, and the students learn at their level. There's an assessment that you give at the beginning and see what they need, and then you go and help them with whatever they need. After we do our word work, then I go into reading. Our district subscribes to the ERLA system. So we like one of my students right now is at the 2B level. Another one is at the 2R level. and we work on books at their level. So we use fiction and nonfiction. We kind of try to alternate those. We practice with a lot of retelling. We practice with talking about the book and understanding the book, and all the skills, point of view, literary elements, etc., that are built into a book. As we're going through that, we're having those discussions, we're talking about what we're reading, we're making sure they understand what they're reading at their level, so that way we can make the most progress possible, and also noticing when things are pronounced wrong so we can provide instruction around that. Once we finish with our reading, then we write about usually what we talked about, or at least part of what we talked about, because obviously the discussion is a lot more than the writing. And that is my routine in a nutshell. And if they have any other questions for me, obviously we can end with that. But the writing is generally our closing, them showing their knowledge. So thank you for joining me today for my presentation.